Chapter 1752. Ah, Xian. Was it about to start? Wasn't he going to play in the hot spring? Was he going to play in the wild? Yiqing Luo held onto Dmo Xian's arm uneasily. The water droplets on both of them formed a flower pattern on the ground. The next moment Yiqing Luo's body was wrapped with a white soft cloth. Wrapping Yiqing Luo tightly in it. Don't catch a cold. Dmo Xian gathered her wet hair. I'll wipe it for you. He said wipe. It was really just wiping. And it was extremely meticulous without any feelings. After wiping her body up and down, not letting a single drop of water go, Dmo Xian took out a red robe from the profound dragon ring and helped Yiqing Luo change into it. His action of helping her put on the robe was a little unfamiliar. But it was still orderly in the chaos, helping Yiqing Luo put on the red robe neatly. Yiqing Luo. Not sleeping anymore? Not playing anymore? Feeling disappointed? Dmo Xian helped her fasten the last belt. His brows were filled with a dazzling smile. Yiqing Luo's face turned red as she shook her head and retorted, "You're the one who's disappointed. And I'm very disappointed that I can't let you sleep." Dmo Xian answered honestly. So honest that Yiqing Luo's face turned even redder as she had no words to refute. She kept cursing in her heart, gritting her teeth. "I'm ready to sleep with you. But you keep refusing to sleep. Refuse to sleep. Refuse to sleep. What's there to talk about disappointment now?" Looking at Yiqing Luo's obviously raging to the heavens, with a look of dissatisfaction, Dmo Xian cupped her face with both hands, forcing her gaze to meet his. Dmo Xian laughed helplessly. "Your body is not suitable to bear and be in need." Yiqing Luo was about to get angry, but when she heard his words she was stunned. Her body. Your body is not fully recovered yet. It will be completely healed in these few days. Dmo Xian's fingers caressed her narrow long eyes. "Lil Luo, I'm more uncomfortable than you." Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned red as she lowered her head and punched him. "I'm not enduring." Her heart, however, was gradually filled with warmth from his gentle words. His expectations were low. She could clearly feel the impact just now. The temperature of his body also clearly showed his desire. However, he still suppressed this feeling. He was serving her without a trace of affection. It was because her body had not fully recovered yet. Indeed, if she was here right now and slept with Dmo Xian, in the end she would definitely be hovering between life and death by Dmo Xian. Then he would have to lie in bed for another 3 to 5 days. Dmo Xian had considered all these. For the sake of her body he suppressed his desire. Bathe her. For her body to ease the exhaustion. Wipe her body. Dress her. If he didn't truly love her, how could he do this? This man. Every time he would inadvertently stir up her love for him. Dmo Xian carried her and walked towards the other side of the mountain not far from the spirit spring. Turning a corner, Yiqing Luo saw, under the cover of the intricate mountain peaks, was a cold stone bed. Dmo Xian flew up and leapt onto the stone bed, sitting cross-legged. Yiqing Luo's body was laid down flat. Her head pillowed on his knees. Her wet hair instantly soaked the pants he had just changed into. Dmo Xian's fingers gently entered her hair. Droplets of water rose. Chapter 1753. Yiqing Luo felt the moderately hot hair dryer, blowing her hair. Strands of hair twined around Dmo Xian's fingertips. His gentle fingertips caressed her hair gently. She couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Ah Xian, if other profound practitioners saw you expending profound energy like this, they would definitely vomit blood out of anger." A world where the strong were respected. Profound Qi was the supreme representation of power. Dmo Xian actually used the supreme representative to dry her hair. Dmo Xian's lips curled upwards, his magnificence unmatched. "For you it's not considered a waste." "Alright, he's flirting with me again." Yiqing Luo moved her body and leaned into Dmo Xian's embrace. Xianxia opened her arms and hugged his waist, leaning her face on his waist. Her nostrils were filled with his scent. It was reassuring and warm. The man's fingertips slid through her hair. He combed her hair gently. This warmth lasted for the time it took for an incense stick to burn. Yiqing Luo's hair was completely dry. Yiqing Luo was about to get up from his lap. Her body was pressed down by his hand. Then his slender fingers circled around her neck. There seemed to be something cold on his neck. He had already withdrawn his hand. "Before I obtain the heart-calming bead, Don't let this jade pendant leave your body. Jade pendant? Yiqing Luo looked down. Sure enough, he saw an emerald-like jade bead hanging from his neck. It was about the size of half a finger, and its entire body was emerald green without any impurities. Faintly, there was a flickering light which Yiqing Luo was unable to understand. This jade pendant can temporarily suppress your profound jade heart's abnormal movements. Zhou Xian explained when he saw her finger hooking the jade pendant. Yiqing Luo raised her eyes as though she thought of something. After Master Ghost Doctor performed acupuncture on me, the words you asked Master Ghost Doctor for a chat, was it because of this jade pendant? Zhou Xian narrowed his peach blossom eyes. At that time, weren't you unconscious? Yiqing Luo was embarrassed as she grabbed Zhou Xian's arm, trying her best to make herself look more confident. After I woke up, I didn't see you by my side, so you specially went to retrieve this jade pendant, right? That was not the case. After disappearing for a day, Zhou Xian would not still have such a decadent appearance. His beard was unshaven. Her crown was a little loose. Exhaustion could be seen on his face. His eyes were turning green. He stayed by her bedside for 3 days and 3 nights before rushing off to retrieve the jade pendant. He had not rested at all. She was still throwing a tantrum, feeling that Zhou Xian wasn't by her side to complete the romance she wanted. This man gave her. It had already far surpassed the so-called romance. What he gave her was his heart. Silly, I have old man song with me, even if I'm a little late in retrieving this jade pendant, it doesn't matter. Yiqing Luo straightened her body from his embrace. She reached out and held his peerlessly handsome face. Even if he was slightly dispirited, he was still as handsome as a banished immortal. Yiqing Luo's fingers bit by bit traced his contour, her brows became gentle, her long and narrow eyes curved. Ah Xian, thank you, luckily. Let me meet you. Zhou Xian gently stroked her hair and hugged the girl in his arms tightly. Her silky black hair was extremely soft. Zhou Xian's eyes were smiling as he replied warmly, if you really want to thank me, then quickly recuperate your body and then do what you want to do to me. What she wanted to do to Zhou Xian. Yiqing Luo's cheeks suddenly flushed red. This man, the matter of sleeping with him, had already turned over the page. He even intentionally brought it up. Did he really couldn't wait to be slept by her? Chapter 1754. By the time Yiqing Luo was carried back to the Sky Dormitory, it was already past midnight. By then, Devil classes students were already doing their morning exercises. The news of Boss Qing Luo being abducted by the Overlord for an entire night quickly spread among the Devil classes students. Even the students in the other Sky dormitories had heard about it. That day, Yiqing Luo finished her breakfast under everyone's teasing gazes. She had an unbearable urge to explode. Damn it, it wasn't the first time she was abducted by Zhou Xian and disappeared for an entire night. Was there a need to be so agitated? She and Zhou Xian had a legitimate relationship as lovers. Using the words of this era, that was the relationship of fiancé and fiancée. Sooner or later they would get married. Even if they disappeared for an entire night, it was a very normal thing. Moreover, nothing happened between them last night. It was just a simple soak in the bath and a hug. The most overboard thing was just kissing. Was there a need to create an uproar and attract attention? Of course, those who teased her were her own brothers. Her own brothers couldn't take her anger. So angry she had to find someone to appease her anger. Thinking of what the vice president had promised her yesterday, Yiqing Luo decided that she would go to the dungeon and find 2 little cannon fodder to vent her anger. After all, those 2 little cannon fodder had created quite a lot of trouble for her in the blazing flame nest. This time she almost lost her life in the battle with the King of Darkness, and it was definitely because of the involvement of these 2 cannon fodder. They died too simply, too easily. Wouldn't that be letting them off easy? Hence, Yiqing Luo threw her bowl and chopsticks aside as she pulled the elegant man beside her and dashed towards the direction of the dungeon. After soaking in the spirit spring last night, coupled with Zhou Xian's use of profound qi and special massage skills, Yiqing Luo was in a state of full health today. Her mental strength was great. Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian had just arrived at the dungeon when the 2 guards at the entrance immediately bowed respectfully. Apparently the vice president had informed them beforehand. A guard led the both of them into the dungeon. The dungeon was dark, giving off a sinister and damp atmosphere. The design of the main courtyard's dungeon was extremely complicated. When he reached the end of the dungeon, he saw a guard stop and step into the last cell. Then he lightly clasped the chains of the cell. The sound was very rhythmic, sometimes fast and sometimes slow. After knocking a few times, the walls of the cage suddenly opened to both sides. 2 guards walked out and glanced at the guard in the cage. The 2 of them exchanged a few words in a low voice, and the 2 guards looked towards Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian. Even though they were well trained, the 2 guards could not help but feel a little dazed. The man's purple robe fluttered in the wind, making him look like an immortal. Even though he was in the dark dungeon, the light that enveloped his body was still dazzling. The woman's red dress was like fire, and her eyebrows were like a painting. Even in this coldine dungeon, she was still like the goddess of the 9th heaven, peerlessly beautiful. When the 2 of them stood together, they were simply a match made in heaven. With one look, one could tell that he was no ordinary person. Were these 2 the important figures that the principal had personally come to inform that he would be coming to the dungeon? The 2 guards immediately became respectful and bowed to the 2 of them. "Please follow us." Following the 2 guards, they stepped into the dungeon. After several turns, they finally saw 2 iron cages suspended in midair in a rather desolate and simple direction. Below the iron cages was a huge poison cave. Chapter 1755. Yiqing Luo frowned slightly. The guard acutely noticed the change in Yiqing Luo's expression as he took a look at the poison cave and immediately reacted. He took out a medicine bottle from his interspatial pocket. "I'm sorry, sirs, it's rare for outsiders to enter the underground prison, so I forgot to pass the antidote to both of you." Yiqing Luo took a look at the medicine bottle and ignored it. She walked straight ahead. Inside the poison cave, the densely packed squirming poisonous creatures could be seen in full view. What poisonous snakes and insects! As long as it was poisonous, it was all mixed in the poison cave. Anyone who saw it would feel their scalp going numb. Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change. As though it sensed someone approaching, the iron cage shook a few times in midair, giving out an ear-piercing collision sound. "Let me out. Let me out. I don't know anything. I really don't know anything." This was Xianxia's voice. It was no longer the usual aloof and melodious voice, but it was extremely hoarse, angry, and filled with hatred. It could be seen that in the past few days of being imprisoned, her voice had already turned hoarse from all the shouting. Xianxia rushed to the front of the iron cage as both her hands held onto the icy cold iron tube. The iron cage that was suspended in the air suddenly tilted down in response to her movements. Xianxia let out a panicked, "Ah!" The entire iron cage flipped in midair. Xianxia was riddled with injuries as she hit the iron tube, screaming hoarsely in pain. Zhou Xian, who was in the other iron cage, heard the sound. She immediately moved her body carefully, wanting to see clearly who it was that had come. But every time she moved, the iron cage would give out an ear-piercing sound. She was afraid and didn't dare to move. A weak voice was heard from the iron cage. "I beg you, let me go. This is all Xianxia's plot. I was only following her orders." "Slut. You're talking nonsense. It's obviously you. It's you." Xianxia retorted frantically, hearing the 2 of them scolding each other in the iron cage. Their voices were extremely hoarse, but in order to survive, they still tried their best to scold the other party. Yiqing Luo dug her ears impatiently. The guard by the side cleverly took out a long whip and whipped the iron cage twice. The iron cage shook from side to side. There was a creaking sound as if the cage would fall in the next moment. One had to know that there was a poison cave below the cage. Once they fell down, they would be devoured by those poisonous creatures in minutes, leaving not even their bones behind. "Shut up. If you dare to disturb the 2 sirs, I'll feed you to the poison cave right now," the guard berated in a stern voice. Their screams came to an abrupt end. Another guard moved a table and 2 chairs over with great foresight. The tables and chairs were wiped clean without a speck of dust. Yiqing Luo and Zhou Xian sat down. The iron cage shook for a while before it gradually calmed down. Xianxia's body trembled as he stuttered, my lord, please let me go. I really don't know anything. I was framed." Yiqing Luo raised her brows as a trace of ridicule flashed past her eyes. His life was about to end. Xianxia really cherished his life. In order to survive, her pride and arrogance could be thrown to the back of her head. Yiqing Luo raised her head and looked at the shaking iron cage and the woman's hysterical cries. She chuckled and slowly opened her mouth. Student Xianxia, were you framed? Why don't you tell me who framed you, perhaps? On account of us being classmates, I can spare your cheap life. The two iron cages shook slightly and instantly fell straight down. Chapter 1756. The dungeon was silent for a moment. The two cages shook violently at the same time. The two of them didn't care about the shaking of the iron cage and directly rushed to the side of the iron cage. He gripped the metal pipe tightly with both hands and looked down. Indeed, they saw Yiqing Luo leisurely and contented, holding her teacup in a dignified and elegant manner, looking at them with a light smile. The anger in his heart and the grievances he had suffered over the past few days. In an instant it shot up into the air. Xianxia's eyes were scarlet red and his gaze was vicious as he stared at Yiqing Luo with extreme hatred. His hoarse voice was hysterical as he screamed, "Slut! You bitch! You set me up! How dare you appear here?" An intense hatred filled Xianxia's heart. For Xianxia, it was all Yiqing Luo's fault that she had turned from a high and mighty heaven's proud daughter to a prisoner. If it wasn't for Yiqing Luo, she would still be the genius who was praised by everyone. Xianxia didn't care about the swaying of the iron cage as he sprawled by the side of the cage and pointed at Yiqing Luo, calling her slut over and over again, venting the anger in his heart. On the other side of the cage, Zhou Xian heard Yiqing Luo's voice and her entire body instantly turned cold. He then heard Xianxia's hysterical and angry roar. Zhou Xian didn't need to climb to the front to know. The person who was watching them from below was Yiqing Luo. Yiqing Luo. It was Yiqing Luo. He recalled the respectful voice of the guard who called him Lord. Zhou Xian's heart sank. Your Excellency. The madam in the guard's words was referring to Yiqing Luo? Just a few short days. Yiqing Luo's status in the South Waves continent was already able to make the guards in this underground dungeon in the headquarters respect her so much? Zhou Xian's heart thumped. Zhou Xian clenched her fists tightly and took a deep breath. Student Yiqing Luo, I'll tell you everything that I know. Please let me go. I was threatened by that slut Xianxia. You know that slut Xianxia always uses her power to bully others. I'm just an ordinary commoner. There's nothing I can do. Zhou Xian's words were immediately met with a torrent of abuse from Xianxia. However, Zhou Xian didn't respond at all and maintained her silence. The guard whipped Xianxia's iron cage. Xianxia's hand, which was resting on the iron pipe, was struck by the whip. He screamed in pain. The entire iron cage was in a state of constant shaking. Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as she looked at this dog-eat-dog drama in a calm and composed manner. She put down the teacup and yawned lazily. Bored? Dmo Xian glanced over, his brows filled with a warm smile. Yiqing Luo sighed helplessly. These two cannon fodders are too much. They don't even have the right to make me appease my anger. You didn't come here to vent your anger, right? Dmo Xian laughed softly. Yiqing Luo's slender brows rose slightly as her body laid limply on the table. One hand had already passed through the table and hooked onto Dmo Xian's arm. Ah, Xian still understands me best. Her posture was extremely seductive. The girl's fragrance entered his nose. This made Dmo Xian recall last night, the enchanting scene in the Spirit Spring. Dmo Xian's blood rushed to his head and his throat tightened. He turned his hand and locked onto Yiqing Luo's wrist. He pulled her violently. Yiqing Luo's body suddenly fell into Dmo Xian's arms. Yiqing Luo's face flushed red as she raised her eyes and stared at him. We're doing proper business, don't get touchy. Dmo Xian's peach blossom eyes narrowed. Who made the first move? Chapter 1757. Xianxia's voice turned hoarse as she lay prone in the shaking iron cage. She was fed a mouthful of dog food by Yiqing Luo. The anger and hatred in her heart was even more uncontrollable. She lay prone at this angle of the iron cage. Coincidentally, she could see the two of them snuggling together in the dungeon. Just like a pair of immortal lovers. A handsome man and a beautiful woman, exuding an enviable sweet atmosphere. What made Xianxia most jealous was that man. The man who looked at Yiqing Luo lovingly. That man was as handsome as a deity. Noble and elegant. Every move he made cast a dazzling light. No matter how one looked at him, he was definitely a person of status. Compared to Nangong Firen, he was even more outstanding. Such an outstanding man should belong to her, Xianxia. She was harmed by Yiqing Luo and ended up in such a state. Yiqing Luo, on the other hand, was elated. She was respected by everyone and had such an outstanding man. Based on what? He was not reconciled. She was absolutely not reconciled. Xianxia's eyes flashed a trace of extremely cold hostility. Her bloodied and scarred fingers clenched into a fist. I want to see the dean, I want to tell him everything I know. Xianxia shouted in a hoarse voice. The guard looked impatient. Do you think you can see the dean whenever you want? If there's anything, tell the two sirs directly. Xianxia didn't say a word. It seemed that as long as the dean didn't come, she would rather die than speak. This made the guard a little distressed. When locking up a prisoner, the most frightening thing was that the prisoner was not afraid of death. The most important thing was, if Xianxia really knew something, they would have already killed him. That would be a huge sin. Yiqing Luo raised her head from Dmo Xian's arms and straightened her body with a teasing look. Immediately, she looked up at the iron cage hanging in midair. Her eyes were as cold as the winter. Xianxia, I'm not interested in listening if you want to say it or not. She crossed her arms over her chest and supported her chin with the other hand, her eyes curved. I came here today just to see your miserable look and to tell you the current situation of the Z family. The steel cage of Xianxia, who had been silent all this while, suddenly shook violently. She pounced in front of the iron cage and stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. Slut! You bitch! It's all your fault, you bitch! Xianxia howled. She shook the iron cage agitatedly and ear-piercing sounds of friction could be heard. Yiqing Luo dug her ears curiously. Had Xianxia been living too carefree these few days in the dungeon? He actually still had so much physical strength left. Could his throat not get hoarse from all the shouting? On seeing Yiqing Luo's actions, the two guards beside her were afraid that they would disturb the two sirs as they lashed the long whips in their hands towards the iron cage. Xianxia, if you dare to be rude to the Lord again, I'll put this iron cage down. The guard had just finished speaking when the iron cage that was suspended in the air suddenly fell down with a sound. Ah! Xianxia screamed in fright. Just when he thought he was about to be swallowed by the poison cave, the metal cage suddenly stopped. It was just a few inches away from the poison cave. Xianxia could clearly see that at the edge of the poison cave, there were centipedes and poisonous snakes mixed with various poisonous insects, sticking out their scarlet tongues at her. Xianxia screamed and shrank behind the iron cage. The iron cage swayed in midair. The poisonous creatures poked their heads out of the cave one after another. Chapter 1758. This scene almost shocked Xianxia out of her wits. Looking at Xianxia shrieking crazily, the guard's face turned cold as he hung the iron cage back in midair. Xianxia, you're just a prisoner now. This is our director's esteemed guest and esteemed sir. If there's a next time. The guard looked at Dmo Xian and Yiqing Luo. He wanted to take the opportunity to increase their favorable impression. But he realized that the both of them had an expression of watching a show. The guard could only turn his head resentfully, and when he looked at Xianxia again, he spoke in a fiendish tone. If there's a next time, little thing in the poison cave, don't be so blind. After the iron cage was raised, Xianxia had already stopped screaming. She panted heavily as she leaned against the iron cage. Her fingers had scratched the wound on her palm. Blood seeped out from her palm. He was totally unaware. Listening to the guard's threatening words, she recalled that when she was screaming earlier, Yiqing Luo must have been beside her, looking at her with a complacent look. Xianxia felt a surge of anger, burning her heart. Good. If you have the ability, put me in the poison cave. I have the secret of the blazing flame lair, the dark forces. If the director doesn't come, I will not say anything. Or you can kill me. Xianxia was furious as she fell beside the iron cage. The general courtyard had locked her up in the dungeon for so many days. Although he would torture and interrogate her every day, he had never used any harsh instruments of torture, nor had he really taken her life. They must be trying to find out some information from her mouth. This was her only capital to live on. She didn't believe that the guard would let her be swallowed by the poison before he got any information from her mouth. Otherwise, the guard wouldn't have stopped midway and hung her up in mid-air. Xianxia, don't play tricks. The guard reprimanded. Xianxia's voice was hoarse as she laughed loudly. A look as though she had no fear towards life and death. Yiqing Luo narrowed her eyes as she glanced sideways at the guard. Satisfy her. Sir. The guard didn't react in time. Doesn't she want to die? Satisfy her. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she smiled warmly. This. The guard hesitated. Xianxia seemed to know some secret. If he killed Xianxia, wouldn't that be release? Yiqing Luo's pink lips curved slightly, her smile was tainted with a chill. The guard stiffened, but under Yiqing Luo's threatening gaze he still chose to obey. The iron cage let out a loud clang. The sound of the guards unlocking the chains reverberated clearly in the dungeon. Xianxia's face turned deathly pale as he looked at the guard in fear. They couldn't believe that the guards actually listened to Yiqing Luo's command, giving up on getting the information from her mouth to kill her. If you kill me, you will be helping the dark forces cover up their crimes. Xianxia pointed at the guard and threatened him sternly. The guards looked at each other. On one side was the person whom the headmaster had personally instructed to entertain. On the other hand, the prisoners whom the dean wanted to pry information from them were currently using information to threaten them. They were just guards. What could they do? They were also in despair. Yiqing Luo smiled warmly. Just a useless chess piece used by the dark forces, what can she know? In terms of information that is more beneficial, on the contrary. Student Zhou Xian should know more than you. Xianxia's howl paused. Chapter 1759. Yiqing Luo raised her brows as she gave a faint smile. The guards had a grave expression as they looked at Xianxia before shifting their gazes onto Yiqing Luo. The meaning of Xianxia's words was, this madam was also related to the dark forces? But looking at Yiqing Luo's calm expression, it didn't look like she was embarrassed after being exposed. Xianxia, do you know who these two are? How dare you spout nonsense here? The guard didn't believe Xianxia's words. She's just guilty. You bunch of fools, you've all been cheated by her. What kind of madam is she? She's just a waste from the Heavenly Academy, relying on the dark forces' secret arts to get into this year's exchange meet. In the Blaze Lair, it's her. She threatened me to help the dark forces and even said that she would bring me into the dark forces. Xianxia screamed hysterically. Tears welled up in her eyes. The guard caught the main point. This is just your one-sided statement. What evidence do you have? Moreover, as a student of the Heavenly Academy, you actually want to join the dark forces? I've been deceived by her. Xianxia covered her face as she burst into tears. I just want to become stronger. I want to become the strongest student in the class of gods. She said the dark forces have the ability to give me endless power. I believed it. She's a waste, judged as a waste who can't cultivate since she was born. She had been a good-for-nothing for nearly 15 years and in a flash, she was admitted into the Heavenly Academy and became the most powerful student there. If it wasn't for the secret arts of the dark forces, how could she become so powerful from a good-for-nothing? The guard's expression changed. One of the guards suddenly thought of something. You're saying? This madam was a waste previously? Yes. She's the publicly acknowledged waste in the West Continent. The reputation of waste, everyone knows about it. Seeing the guard taking the bait, Xianxia's eyes flashed a trace of ruthlessness. No matter what, she must drag Yiqing Luo down with her. She wanted to see, after getting involved with the dark forces, what qualifications did Yiqing Luo have to be addressed as madam, and what qualifications did she have to sit beside that outstanding man? Xianxia looked at Yiqing Luo complacently. She tried to see panic and unexplainable panic from Yiqing Luo's face. But Yiqing Luo's expression remained calm. There was even a teasing smile at the corner of his mouth. He seemed to have sensed her gaze. Yiqing Luo's brows rose as her eyes met with her gaze filled with ridicule. Xianxia's heart skipped a beat. His breathing tightened and he found it hard to breathe. Why, until now Yiqing Luo still had the expression of watching a good show. Yiqing Luo didn't even put her in her eyes? Yiqing Luo had absolute confidence to refute her words? At this moment, the guard had already swallowed a mouthful of saliva as he looked at Yiqing Luo's expression with even more reverence. This sire's name, could it be Yiqing Luo? Xianxia's thoughts were all on Yiqing Luo and totally didn't notice the guard's expression. Thinking that the guard had heard of Yiqing Luo's reputation of being a waste, he immediately replied, yes. He was Yiqing Luo. West Continent's famous Three Springs Sex Waste 7th Missy Yiqing Luo. When this name came out of Xianxia's mouth, the guards immediately looked at each other. Now you should believe what I said. If not for the dark forces, how could a waste like her? Xianxia's complacent words had not finished. Chapter 1760. Xianxia was dumbfounded. The direction where the guards were kneeling was exactly towards Yiqing Luo's direction. What was going on? Why were these guards kneeling towards Yiqing Luo? Yiqing Luo was also stunned by these guards' actions. She immediately stood up and was about to help them up. Behind her, a dignified deep voice was heard. I heard that some prisoners had been clamoring to see me. Sir Director. The guards immediately turned in another direction and kowtowed towards the entrance of the dungeon. They saw the director walking over slowly. The director was dressed in a white robe and his gaze was dignified. Director. Yiqing Luo nodded towards the director. When the director's gaze shifted to Yiqing Luo, his eyes were filled with a kind and amiable smile. Following that, he quickened his footsteps and walked to the side of Zhou Xian, who had been sitting all along, as he respectfully bowed towards Zhou Xian. Zhou Xian waved his hand. The director then stood up and asked the guards who were kneeling on the ground to get up. At this moment the guards were stunned. Xianxia was even more stunned. Who is the director? That was the main courtyard's director. Not to mention this was the main courtyard's turf. Even if it was in other continents, any family or powerhouse would want to please him. The main courtyard's director actually was so respectful towards a handsome-looking man. What was the man's identity? He seemed to have that kind of relationship with Yiqing Luo. Realizing this point, Xianxia was so jealous that she was about to go crazy. She tugged at her tattered and blood-stained sleeves as she looked at Zhou Xian in a daze. That kind of noble and perfect man. How could he belong to that slut Yiqing Luo? How could he be so gentle towards that slut Yiqing Luo? Suddenly, Xianxia's expression changed as he stretched out his hand and pointed at Zhou Xian. You are? Overlord. The current Zhou Xian had intentionally changed his looks, in case he caused too much commotion when he was beside Yiqing Luo. But no matter how he changed his looks, his temperament and the inherent nobility would not change. The man beside Yiqing Luo. The man who had an intimate relationship with Yiqing Luo. It was Zhou Xian. When Xianxia uttered the words Lord Dizun, the crowd was stunned. The guards who had just stood up, knelt on the ground again with a thud. Dizun. Zhou Xian raised his eyes, and in his half-narrowed peach blossom eyes, there was no longer the ripple from earlier, but an extremely cold intent. The guards knelt on the ground, not daring to make a sound. Don't scare them. Yiqing Luo rolled her eyes at Zhou Xian and immediately looked towards those guards. Get up, ignore him. The guards were speechless. You are the Overlord's favorite. Of course you are not afraid. But we were trash. Yiqing Luo sighed. With such a great Buddha by his side, he would be able to intimidate people wherever he went. Yiqing Luo simply couldn't be bothered to get those guards to stand up, but directly looked towards the dumbstruck Xianxia. Student Xianxia. Xianxia's whole body trembled. Even if you get Dizun to testify, you can't prove that you didn't collaborate with the dark forces. Moreover, the Imperial Palace might be in cahoots with the dark forces. Bam! A loud sound was heard and the sound of the metal chains swaying was heard. Xianxia's metal cage suddenly fell down from the sky. That metal cage fell to the side of the poison cave and stopped. But very quickly there were poisonous creatures wriggling as they climbed up the metal cage. Xianxia cried out in terror, as he trembled as he walked towards the other side of the metal cage. Chapter 1761. That iron chain was cut off by the headmaster. It was also the headmaster who used his profound chi to control the height of the iron cage. Just as those dozens of poisonous creatures crawled towards Xianxia. Suddenly there was another profound chi, blocking those poisonous creatures from approaching. To be precise, it was a layer of light that plated Xianxia's body. That light had the power to stop the poisonous creatures from approaching. The headmaster's expression changed slightly as he immediately turned to stare at the guard. The guard knelt down and explained, "Headmaster, please investigate clearly. This subordinate has indeed personally fed her the Supreme Profound Medicine Soup." Supreme Profound Medicine Soup. As the name suggested, it was a kind of medicine that targeted profound practitioners. It was a kind of medicine that could dissolve the profound energy of a profound practitioner. Once it entered the stomach, within 4 hours, it would dissolve all the profound qi in the body, unable to use any profound energy. Only after taking the antidote could she use profound energy normally. The power protecting her is indeed not profound energy. Yiqing Luo said lightly. A trace of craftiness flashed through her half-squinted eyes. She had almost forgotten. Xianxia had a legendary grade weapon on her, Tianling staff. That light on her body was the Tianling staff protecting Xianxia. No wonder it was a legendary grade weapon, it had its own consciousness to protect its owner. Yiqing Luo licked her lips. A trace of scheming flashed past her eyes. Xian suddenly reached out and pulled her into his arms. A clear and deep voice sounded beside her ear. You want it. The minute he saw Yiqing Luo's expression, he saw through her thoughts. Yiqing Luo nodded. A legendary grade weapon was rare, how could he not want it? The Tianling staff is made from Mirage Beast's magic crystal. It has gathered the resentment of thousands of Mirage Beasts. If you insist on controlling it, it is likely to cause a backlash from the profound Jade Heart. Xian curled up a strand of her hair and brought it to his lips for a light kiss. Yiqing Luo facepalmed. She had already forgotten that her profound Jade Heart had already started to move. If she went to conquer the Mirage Beast resentment, something bad was going to happen. Whatever, let's get it first. At most, after you tame it, throw it to the brothers as a toy. Yiqing Luo wrapped her arms around Xian's neck. Anyway, she had hugged such a thigh, what was there for her to worry about? Xian's eyes were filled with a gentle and pampering smile. His gaze was so gentle that water could be squeezed out of it. However, standing at the side, the principal, the few guards, and Xianxia, who was surrounded by poisonous creatures in the metal cage, broke out in a cold sweat. They were clearly discussing serious matters. These two lords had suddenly fed them a mouthful of dog food. Look at His Majesty's eyes. How was he like the heartless person in the legends? He was a henpecked husband who doted on his wife as much as his own life. Cough, cough, cough. The principal coughed dryly as he looked at the two of them. His eyes were filled with tenderness as though he had forgotten everything else. Yiqing Luo's cheeks were dyed crimson red. Glaring resentfully at Xian, she got up from his embrace and flipped her hair. Cough that. Let's get rid of the poison first, she has something I want on her. The principal waved his sleeves. The poisonous creatures that crawled all over the iron cage immediately fell into the poisonous cave. The iron cage rose into the air again. Xianxia was still in a state of shock. He rubbed his arms with a face full of fear. Until all the poisonous creatures were gone. She was still shivering in fear. Yiqing Luo leaped up. Her red robe was like a flame poppy blossoming in the darkness, emitting a fatal temptation. She floated in midair at the same level as Xianxia. Chapter 1762. In the iron cage, Xianxia was covered in blood and injuries. Her robe had long turned into shreds. That exquisite face was covered in dirt and blood. She looked like a crazy woman. She screamed hysterically and cursed at the top of her lungs, venting all the hatred in her heart. Not convinced. Yiqing Luo's lips curled upwards as her smile was peerlessly beautiful. Suddenly, her eyes turned cold as it was tainted with a bloodthirsty chill. Even if you're not convinced, you'd better hold it in. You slut. Xianxia was frightened by her gaze as she shrunk back. Xianxia, you keep saying that student Yiqing Luo is the mastermind and colluded with the dark forces. Do you have any evidence? The principal asked. I don't have any evidence. But for her wastrel body to suddenly become so powerful, other than the dark forces' secret arts, what other explanation is there? Xianxia insisted on Yiqing Luo. What rubbish are you talking about? How could Madame Yiqing Luo possibly collude with the dark forces? The guard who was kneeling on the ground opened his mouth. Another guard said, Blazing Flame Lair, Madame Yiqing Luo saved the students from various academies and also saved our loved ones. How could such a respectable lady be the mastermind of this matter? The few guards nodded in agreement. Their loved ones were all studying in various academies. In this training in the Blazing Flame Lair, their loved ones almost lost their lives in the hands of the dark forces. It was Yiqing Luo who saved their loved ones. This was the reason why when they heard Yiqing Luo's name, they subconsciously knelt down in front of her. Xianxian's face turned steely green. How could there be such a coincidence? These few guards had loved ones in the blazing flame lair and were saved by Yiqing Luo? But the words to drag Yiqing Luo into the water had already been said out and she had no way of retracting it. She could only brace herself and said, "That's her scheme to gain your trust and then push me out as a shield." Hee hee. A light laughter came out from Yiqing Luo's mouth. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule. "I say Xianxian, you're really stupid, so stupid that even Zhou Xian beside you is smarter than you." "You slut, what did you say?" Xianxian had yet to finish his roar. Then with a paw sound, Xianxian spat out a mouthful of blood. Her body flew backward and hit the metal pipe. The iron cage kept shaking. It crashed into Xianxian's petite body. Yiqing Luo slowly retracted her hand as her lips curled into an eerie smile. "Let me hear another word that makes me unhappy from your mouth and I'll give you another slap." After a pause, her smile became even more sinister. "Don't worry, I won't kill you so easily." There was a hint of a smile in her clear voice. It was just that this laughter caused one's hair to stand on end when they heard it. Death is liberation. The real torture is worse than death. Xianxian understood the deep meaning behind Yiqing Luo's words. His face instantly turned deathly pale. The resentment and hatred in his eyes poured out. But he didn't dare to say another word. "Xianxian, you said that student Yiqing Luo colluded with the dark forces. Then do you know that the King of Darkness has been sealed by student Yiqing Luo personally?" The principal saw Yiqing Luo's actions but didn't have any intention to stop her. Instead he looked at Xianxian in a dignified manner. Xianxian clutched his chest as he coughed. Chapter 1763. Yiqing Luo sealed the King of Darkness? King of Darkness? How could this be? However, these words came from the dean's mouth. Those guards' attitude towards Yiqing Luo was unprecedentedly respectful and grateful. Xianxian had no choice but to believe it. Yiqing Luo sealed the King of Darkness, which meant that Yiqing Luo had annihilated the King of Darkness. But she remembered. She remembered it clearly. When Gui Wu and the others broke through the barrier and found all the students, Yiqing Luo was obviously under the control of the King of Darkness. Why did she become the hero of all the academies? Become the hero of the Nirvana realm? Xianxian's face gradually lost its color and turned deathly pale. Recalling his earlier actions trying to push the blame onto Yiqing Luo. Simply stupid to the point of exploding. Actually, it's not that I don't want to give you a chance to live. Yiqing Luo smiled as she glanced between the two cages. The obedient and silent Zhou Xian immediately sat up straight and looked at Yiqing Luo with a hopeful gaze. "How about this? The two of you tell me clearly how you met the people of the dark forces in the fiery nest that day, and how you agreed to set up the runa race for them." Yiqing Luo still maintained her smile. Her smile was extremely sweet. Whoever speaks the truth and clearly doesn't need to go down. Yiqing Luo's slender finger pointed towards the poison cave below. I'll talk. Zhou Xian immediately grabbed the metal pipe. "What do you want to know? As long as I know it, I will definitely tell you everything." "Fensitter." Xianxian scoffed coldly as he swept a cold glance at Zhou Xian. "If you have the ability, then put me down. Do you really think I'm afraid of death?" Yiqing Luo smiled but didn't say a word as she slowly approached Xianxian's iron cage. She was dressed in red and looked even more enchanting than blood. Her exquisite face was suffused with a bone-chilling coldness. Her gaze swept across Xianxian. Suddenly his palm moved. The gourd flame fan in his hand suddenly opened. A whirlwind was released from the devouring flame fan. The whirlwind was like a curved hook. It circled around Xianxian's body. A pitch-black magic staff was caught in the whirlwind. Yiqing Luo opened her arms. The whirlwind circled back. It wrapped around Yiqing Luo's wrist. Then the whirlwind dispersed. A black staff landed steadily in Yiqing Luo's palm. The appearance of the staff was extremely strange. The complex ancient totem, the black sphere at the top of the staff that opened eye, was staring at Yiqing Luo without blinking. This was the Tianling staff. When Xianxian saw the skymist staff in Yiqing Luo's hands, the complacent and fearless expression on his face instantly changed. "Boy, you stole my Tianling staff." She had learned her lesson and didn't dare to scold Yiqing Luo anymore. Yiqing Luo waved her divine silk cane and said smilingly, Now it's mine. Principal Jing. The guards. It was the first time he had seen someone rob someone who acted so matter-of-factly. Dmo Xian's face was filled with indulgence. It was indeed his Lil Luoer's style. All of a sudden a black object smashed down from the sky. Dmo Xian raised his hand to catch it. It was the Tianling staff. Yiqing Luo waved her hand. That eye is a little powerful, help me communicate with that eye first. No wonder it was a legendary grade weapon. No wonder it had gathered thousands of Mirage Beasts' resentment. Chapter 1764. When she had just gotten the Sky Mist staff. Yiqing Luo obviously felt the resistance from the Sky Mist staff. When that eye met her. Old Man Tsang issued a warning. Such a powerful legendary staff. Xianxia's ability had no way to contract with the Sky Mist staff. Which meant the Sky Mist staff currently had no owner. He should just rob it. Throw it to Dmo Xian and let him train the Sky Mist staff, then throw it to the brothers in Devil class to play with. If Xianxia knew that the divine relic which he relied on for survival was given to the brothers to play with, he would probably vomit blood from anger. Yiqing Luo snatched Xianxia's Sky Mist staff and her attitude became much better. Looking at Xianxia's pale face, she smiled warmly. Now you can start your performance. This performance naturally referred to everything Yiqing Luo wanted to know. Zhou Xian immediately spoke first. I met the people from the dark forces first. She was the one who looked for me and said she had a way to deal with you. Right. It's her, she was the one who instigated me to look for that person. Without the protection of the Sky Mist staff, Xianxia could no longer be complacent. Neither of them were willing to fall into the poison cave and be swallowed by that bunch of poisonous creatures. The two of them were fighting to threaten each other. No one was willing to let the other spill out everything they knew in detail. Everything was as what Yiqing Luo had guessed. From the start till the end, these two had never seen the so-called dark forces and totally didn't know that what they were doing was related to the dark forces. It was entirely because of a woman's jealousy which triggered a huge battle. It was indeed a very useless detail. It was totally useless for them to investigate the dark forces. Principal shook his head helplessly. He knew that after being frightened by Yiqing Luo, Xianxia and Zhou Xian didn't dare to tell any lies. This was indeed all the information they knew. Although the dark forces were completely annihilated by the imperial palace. But the four great holy techniques and the four great pharaohs used the dark secret arts to escape. This made the principal extremely worried. He thought he could find out the whereabouts of the four great holy techniques and pharaohs from Xianxia. From the looks of it, Xianxia hadn't even seen the people from the dark forces. However, this wasn't Yiqing Luo's motive. Yiqing Luo had already guessed most of the details that the both of them had mentioned. Asking these two people to explain in detail was just to... Yiqing Luo squinted her eyes as her brows were filled with craftiness. That person who said she could deal with me and lied to you to collaborate with the dark forces, is she Feng Ling? The two of them were startled. Then he immediately nodded. Yes, it's her. At that time she seemed to have been seriously injured and it was a strange-looking woman who looked like a shadow that was hugging her. Shadow? Dmo Xian frowned. His eyes, which had always been calm and deep, faintly rippled with a layer of ripples. His change in emotions didn't escape Yiqing Luo's eyes. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as she wasn't able to ascertain that the change in his emotions was because she had mentioned Feng Ling in front of the principal and the guards. Or, that shadow-like woman? Sensing Yiqing Luo's hesitant gaze, Dmo Xian kept the deep thoughts in his mind as he stood up and hugged Yiqing Luo's shoulders. Feng Ling is no longer a member of the Imperial Palace. Since she chose to collude with the dark forces, I will not tolerate it. Chapter 1765. This was also to express his attitude to Yiqing Luo. Hearing Dmo Xian's words, Yiqing Luo's heart heaved a sigh of relief. If Dmo Xian still cared about Feng Ling, then her following plan would not continue. Of course, it wasn't that she didn't trust Dmo Xian. After all, Feng Ling was the granddaughter of the Imperial Palace's granny and someone who had been by Dmo Xian's side since young. Feelings were not something that could completely fade away in a day and night. Moreover, it was rumored that the Imperial Palace's granny was considered as Dmo Xian's elder. Yiqing Luo didn't wish for Dmo Xian to be put in a difficult position. As long as Dmo Xian said it, she could give up on the following plans. But Dmo Xian used his actions to express his heart. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with smiles as her arms circled around his neck. She didn't care how the surrounding people looked at her. Hooking her arms around Demo Xian's neck, she planted her pink lips on his. The smile between her eyebrows was so charming and beautiful. In front of the elders, this kind of behavior was considered immoral in the South Continent. But director, the guards, even Xianxia and Zhou Xian both felt. This scene was simply a damned abuse of the dogs. Full of bliss, what were those pink bubbles for? Her lips touched Demo Xian's and Yiqing Luo immediately moved her lips away. She turned her head and saw pairs of eyes staring at her. Among them was a pair of the 50-year-old director's eyes. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly rose a sense of shyness. She covered her face with both hands as she buried her head into Demo Xian's arms. Oh no, I was too happy and forgot the occasion. Demo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles as his slender fingers gently brushed past her hair. It's all right, my woman doesn't need to care about the occasion. Yiqing Luo exploded. Yiqing Luo expressed that her little heart couldn't take Demo Xian's fierce teasing. She heard director couldn't suppress his low laughter. Yiqing Luo's face turned redder. She cleared her throat and changed the topic, going according to her original plan. Director, the person who colluded with the dark forces is Feng Ling. She made use of Xianxia and Zhou Xian's hatred towards me and instigated them to help the dark forces. Then, after the matter was exposed, she fled without a trace. She has such an understanding of runes and had Xianxia and Zhou Xian bury the formation cores for the forces of darkness even when Master Ghost Martial Arts' profound light mirror was unable to detect them. From this, it can be seen that the relationship between wind chimes and the forces of darkness is not as simple as using each other. Her tone was filled with righteous indignation. Listening to this tone, even Xianxia felt that Feng Ling was extremely despicable. After using them, she escaped by herself. This wind chimes, naturally they had heard of it before. The granddaughter of the Imperial Palace's granny. She always claimed that she was the future mistress of the Imperial Palace, the future empress. Unexpectedly, he was actually involved with the dark forces. Could it be? The principal's gaze went back and forth between Yiqing Luo and Demo Xian. Suddenly, for words appeared in his mind. Love turned to hate. The overlord must have fallen in love with Yiqing Luo. This caused Feng Ling to not be able to get what she wanted, so she sought help from the dark forces to kill Yiqing Luo and snatch back the overlord. In an instant, the principal and the guards had already imagined a melodramatic love drama. Principal. Just as he was imagining, the principal suddenly heard Yiqing Luo's call. He suddenly regained his senses as he looked at Yiqing Luo. Chapter 1766. Principal nodded slightly, indicating for Yiqing Luo to speak directly. Yiqing Luo replied solemnly, I hope Principal can use the headquarters name to issue a warrant for Feng Ling's arrest in Nirvana Realm. Her portrait, I will pass it to you later. As long as you bring Feng Ling to the headquarters and hand her over to you, I will give you 10,000 gold coins and a bottle of high-grade medicinal pills as a reward. Principal was stunned, but his attention was placed on Yiqing Luo's last sentence. High-grade medicinal pills? High-grade medicinal pills? And a bottle? Even with the overlord, there was no need to be so overbearing, right? It was hard to find a master alchemist and even further south in Nirvana Realm. To be able to refine high-grade medicinal pills, the master alchemist must at least be a grandmaster alchemist or above. Grandmaster alchemist. In the entire South Continent, probably only the Alchemist Guild was able to see it. Or those large clans who used their wealth to nurture a grandmaster alchemist. Even the headquarters only had one apothecary at the level of a medicine ancestor. Moreover, this grandmaster alchemist didn't dare to use a bottle of high-grade medicinal pills as a reward. Not enough. Yiqing Luo misunderstood Principal's meaning. Principal's expression kept changing. Can you tell me how many high-grade medicinal pills do you have on you? Yiqing Luo finally understood the reason for Principal's astonished expression. She blinked her eyes and smiled innocently. The ghost doctor is my Shifu. Principal was stunned. Master? That ghost doctor who was known as Ghost Hand Doctor was actually Yiqing Luo's master? No wonder. When Yiqing Luo was saved by Demo Xian, ghost doctor who hated trouble, came all the way to South Continent to treat Yiqing Luo. And he treated her for a total of 3 days and 3 nights. If it wasn't for his disciple, how would Ghost Doctor waste his refining time? Yiqing Luo could become Ghost Doctor's disciple. In terms of refining pills, she must have an extremely strong innate talent. Casually rewarding a bottle of high-grade medicinal pills indeed suited Ghost Doctor's disciple's character. If Yiqing Luo told Principal that she was still the champion of the Alchemist Guild's pill refining competition, he estimated that the Principal would have fainted from the stimulation of Yiqing Luo's abnormal innate talent. Principal's gaze towards Yiqing Luo was as though he was staring at his prey. He couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. From the very beginning he had taken a fancy to this abnormal little girl. Yiqing Luo had goosebumps all over her body from that stare as she rubbed her arms. That? Principal, if you have something to say, just say it, let's not beat around the bush. Little girl, I've put out a bounty for him on your behalf. Naturally, the headquarters won't let a little girl like you pay for this reward. But the principal's white eyebrows curved into crescents as he smiled. Little girl, since Grandpa Principal treats you so well, if you manage to refine any high-grade pills in the future, don't forget about the headquarters. Yiqing Luo's head was filled with black lines. No wonder he was the dean of the general hospital. He really knew how to take advantage of the situation. But towards the two directors of the main courtyard, Yiqing Luo more or less had a favorable impression of them. Moreover, these two deans were sincere in their devotion to the headquarters and to the other academies. Yiqing Luo was willing to befriend them. One more friend meant one more helping hand. What's more, he was the famous dean of the General Academy. The dignified dean of the General Academy only knows how to scam me. Yiqing Luo covered her face as she buried her head into Zhou Xian's arms. I'm just a pitiful weak lady with no power or influence, so I can only be forced to agree to it. Principal and the guards. You have no power or influence, you're a weak lady? Chapter 1767. This was not the end. Yiqing Luo raised her head again, putting on a pitiful expression as she blinked her innocent eyes. When Feng Ling was in the headquarters exchange meet, she colluded with the dark forces to lay hands on the various academies. This was originally your headquarters' responsibility, so putting out a warrant for Feng Ling is also part of your duty. Principal Zheng's eyebrows twitched. Director has taken a fancy to a weak lady's pill refining innate talent. That request which I mentioned to Director earlier, Director can consider it properly. Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly. Sure enough, this lass wasn't one to suffer losses. Yiqing Luo blinked her eyes craftily and didn't continue to urge him. Instead she yawned and hung herself on Zhou Xian. The air here isn't very good, Xian, let's go back first. Zhou Xian hugged her waist and hugged her in his arms, softly saying, "N." The two of them turned around and walked towards the entrance of the dungeon. Xianxia panicked. Slut. Yiqing Luo. You said that as long as we told you everything about the flame lair, you'd let us go. Zhou Xian also gripped the metal pipe tightly. Madam Yiqing Luo. Madam. I have told you everything I know. Yiqing Luo's lips curved upwards slightly. Zhou Xian stopped in his tracks and turned around. The young girl in the fiery red dress had a gorgeous smile on her beautiful face. Her pink lips curled upwards, revealing a hint of bloodlust. That's right. I did say that whoever speaks the most doesn't have to go down. But I didn't say that I would let you off. Xianxia and Zhou Xian's faces instantly turned pale. Yiqing Luo continued to smile as she looked at Director Zheng. Next, it's Director's matter. Earlier I said the most and the most detailed one, you can change another way of death. The other one, throw it down to feed those little cuties. Coming out from the underground prison and seeing the sunlight again, Yiqing Luo raised her hand to cover her eyes. Her slender fingers were sparkling and translucent like jade under the sunlight. A few rays of light, through the gap between the fingers, sprinkled on her face. Yiqing Luo sighed softly. Xian, you really don't blame me? This time her goal in coming to the dungeon was indeed to drag Feng Ling out. It was no coincidence that the principal had come at the right time. On her way here she purposely passed by the principal's meeting hall. The sound of her and Zhou Xian's conversation was transmitted into the principal's ears. She deliberately revealed to the principal that Feng Ling was the one who instigated Xianxia and Zhou Xian. It was to use the name of the headquarters to put a bounty on Feng Ling's head. She was forcing Feng Ling to show herself. Her target was the tranquility bead in Feng Ling's hand. Before her abilities were sufficient to control the divine phoenix profound heart jade, she needed the heart-calming pearl to stabilize her profound heart jade. As for Fengling, she tried in vain to use the tranquility pearl to threaten Zhou Xian to give her the position of matriarch. Then she would personally crush Wind Chime's support and thoughts bit by bit. How could she allow other women to covet her man? Zhou Xian's footsteps stopped. He looked down. That peerless face was reflected in Yiqing Luo's eyes at close range. That pair of peach blossom eyes that seemed to carry thousands of spring waters were filled with tenderness. Lil Luo, I've said it before. In this world, the only person I want to protect is you. For you, I'm willing to defy the heavens no matter what. Yiqing Luo's eyes turned slightly red. That gaze filled with tenderness made her heart ripple like a pool of spring water. Chapter 1768. If possible, she really did not want to have anything to do with Fengling. A mere wind chime did not matter. But Fengling's backer was the Imperial Palace's grandma, who was considered as Zhou Xian's relative. Lil Luo, you should understand my character. Zhou Xian's gentle voice was as mellow as fine wine, making Yiqing Luo momentarily lost in thought. Zhou Xian had a panoramic view of Yiqing Luo's eyes. He raised his thin lips and smiled helplessly. You and I are the same kind of people. If we treat each other sincerely, we will repay each other sincerely. But if we are enemies, we will not show any mercy. His hand closed over the small hand that was caressing his cheek. I am indeed indebted to Grandma, but after so many years, I have already repaid what I should. Furthermore, her kindness to me was only because she was using me. Or perhaps Fengling's feelings for me were not sincere. Since she took the initiative to sever the ties between us, I will fulfill her wish. Zhou Xian's voice was very gentle. This was his unique gentleness towards Yiqing Luo. But when it came to his grandmother, he didn't have the slightest bit of emotion. He didn't feel the slightest bit of regret. All this time he had been living in an emotionless palace. It was also because of this that he had no feelings for the Imperial Palace's granny. Indeed, they were of the same kind. He was once in that world. The old men of the Yi clan had been by her side since she was a child, teaching and training her. Gave her all the survival skills. He should be her benefactor or relative who had raised her. But when they died, she didn't feel sad at all. Even at the end when he jumped off the plane. What she wanted was to perish together with those old men. Yiqing Luo raised her head as her hands hooked around his neck. A warm smile appeared on her face. Ah Xian, I'll be with you from now on. She was very glad that she was fortunate enough to come to this other world after thinking that she would die for sure. He got to know brothers worthy of deep friendship. She now had the kinship she had never dreamed of. She had also met a man whom she had fallen in love with. She thanked the heavens for letting her come to this world. Zhou Xian lowered his head and kissed her lips. The warm and sweet atmosphere rose between the two of them. Like honey, even the air had become sweet. The speed at which the headquarters handled matters was extremely fast. In just 2 hours, the headquarters had already copied thousands, tens of thousands of portraits based on the portraits which Yiqing Luo had provided. In the name of the headquarters, they issued an arrest warrant for Fengling to the Nirvana realm. The people in the continents were so angry that they gritted their teeth. They wanted to drag Wind Chimes out and beat her up to vent their anger. It was only an afternoon and an evening. The news of Wind Chimes being the mastermind who framed the academies and worked with the forces of darkness spread through Nirvana world. It had almost reached the point where everyone knew about it. Whereas on the other side, Yiqing Luo was holding onto the wanted poster in her hands as she smiled complacently. Looking at her sneaky smile, the devil class's students all hugged their arms tightly, rubbing their hands together. Fortunately, this was their boss, not their enemy. It was a way to deal with a rival in love. It was simply explosive. The female students, on the other hand, had looks of admiration on their faces, as if they were looking at their idol. They all expressed that when dealing with a love rival, one must make the love rival beg for death. Everyone's here. Suddenly, a gentle voice was heard from the door. Xianxia was dressed in a brown luxurious robe as he walked in from the skyward dormitory's door. Chapter 1769. Xianxia? Why was he here? Yiqing Luo's eyes sunk as a deep meaning flashed past her eyes. She had not forgotten that in the Dark Force's main camp, she saw Xianxia and the Dark Force's holy technique Pharaoh chatting happily. Those people who were high up in the Dark Forces. They were extremely respectful towards Xishanglan. Thinking back to the Imperial Palace's investigation on Xishanglan, it was so clean and pure. Yiqing Luo suspected that this Xishanglan's identity was not simple. Moreover, the force behind him was not as simple as Xi family. Or perhaps he was not the real Xishanglan. This thought flashed past her mind. Yiqing Luo's gaze instinctively looked towards Yan Xiaoyi. Yan Xiaoyi didn't have any change in her emotions towards Xishanglan's arrival. Her head was lowered and her hair covered half of her face, making it impossible to see her expression. She seemed to be in her own world, deep in thought. It was until Xishanglan walked to her side when Yan Xiaoyi suddenly raised her beautiful eyes. You. Yan Xiaoyi frowned as she looked unhappy. What are you here for again? Towards Yan Xiaoyi's indifferent attitude, Xishanglan wasn't angry at all. He was still as gentle as jade as he put on an amiable smile and spoke warmly. Xiaoyi, I know you don't want to see me, but I miss you. The gentle tone, the tender words, made the female students of the devil class cup their faces with both hands, extremely envious. Eating the overlord and Madame Qing Luo's dog food every day, they were about to be abused to tears. Now another pair came. Ow ow ow. They also wanted to have such a gentle fiancé and wanted a fiancé who loved them so much. The female students clenched their fists as their faces were filled with envy and jealousy. They also wanted to find a fiancé. They also wanted to show off. They also wanted to give out dog food every day. Give out dog food, give out dog food. This came from the single dog's resentment. However, the female students' envious gazes didn't change Yan Xiaoyi's emotions at all. Her delicate face was devoid of any expression. She raised her eyes and fixed her gaze on Xishanglan as her voice was calm. Xishanglan, the person who is engaged to you is Miss Yan, not me. You are Yan family's eldest young Mississippi, Xishanglan replied gently. I'm not. Yan Xiaoyi's lips curled into a sneer. I'm devil class's Yan Xiaoyi, the world group's Yan Xiaoyi, but I have no relations with the Yan family. After a pause, her smile deepened, but there was no trace of a smile in her eyes. The Yan family has arranged an engagement with you. Just go find the Yan family and stop harassing me. Otherwise, don't blame my brothers for being merciless. Xishanglan's gentle eyes darkened as he looked at Yan Xiaoyi's stubborn and cold expression. It disappeared in a flash so fast that no one could catch it. Yiqing Luo had been staring at Xishanglan and naturally saw this strange look in his eyes. Her heart tightened as she immediately stood up and flashed towards Yan Xiaoyi. She had a petite body but her aura was majestic. Yan Xiaoyi was completely blocked. Xishanglan frowned slightly. Young Master Shi, I didn't hear Xiaoyi. Yiqing Luo had yet to finish her words. Xishanglan quickly regained his composure as he interrupted Yiqing Luo's words gently and politely. Qing Luo, I'm here specially to look for you. Yiqing Luo's words were suppressed back. She frowned. Looking for me? Chapter 1770. Sky returning primordial serene grass? Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. She had seen the name of this herb in 100 pill refining. Her soul consciousness moved and information regarding the sky returning primordial serene grass immediately appeared in her mind. This herb was one stalk of 1,000 years and was extremely precious. If this herb was mixed with other precious herbs to refine into pills, it could raise a cultivator's cultivation. If the alchemist's level was high, the medicinal herb that was mixed would be extremely precious. It could totally raise a cultivator's level by 1 grade after consuming it. Even though this sky-returning primordial serene grass was just a stalk of herb, it was also something that numerous cultivators had dreamt of. But what made Yiqing Luo interested was this sky-returning primordial serene grass was not only for cultivators to consume. To the magical beasts it was also a good medicine. Basically all the cultivators would not bear to feed the advanced profound grade herb to the magical beasts. But Yiqing Luo was interested in this stalk of precious herb because of her 2 slumbering sacred beasts. Ever since the dark forces returned, Qi and Qi Yan had been in deep sleep. Old Man Tsong said that they were in the midst of evolution. When they awakened, the sacred beasts' abilities would be upgraded. If they had the sky-returning primordial serene grass, it would speed up the advancement of the 2 sacred beasts. If those cultivators who were interested in the sky-returning primordial serene grass knew that Yiqing Luo wanted to feed such a precious herb to the magical beasts, They would probably vomit blood and shout that it was a waste of God's gift. Qing Luo is an alchemist, so you must be extremely interested in this one stalk of 1,000 years medicinal herb. I specially came here to tell you this news. Xishanglan saw Yiqing Luo's bewitching eyes and a dark glint flashed past his eyes. Yiqing Luo smiled lightly. Thank you, young Master Shi, for specially making a trip here. I will definitely be there for the auction tomorrow. Xishanglan took out 4 gold inlaid invitations and passed it to Yiqing Luo with both hands. Only Treasure Pavilion's invitations are allowed to enter the Treasure Pavilion's auction held once every 3 months. I can only help you get 4 invitations. Saying that, he lowered his eyelids guiltily. I hope Qing Luo doesn't mind. Yiqing Luo took the invitations and squinted her eyes, sizing up the man in front of her. His guilty look indeed made one unable to bear it. If he didn't know that Xishanglan's identity wasn't simple. She was probably about to be fooled by Xishanglan's acting skills. Young Master, she must have put in a lot of effort for these 4 invitations, so why would I despise young Master Shi's good intentions? Yiqing Luo said smilingly. Those who were on the right path should have received some benefits by now and would put in a few good words for him and Yan Xiaoyi. But unfortunately, Yiqing Luo didn't mention a single word about what Yan Xiaoyi said. As though Xishanglan had worked hard to get these 4 invitation cards, was on account of her, Yiqing Luo's face. Before Xishanglan's identity was unclear and his motive was unclear, how could Yiqing Luo possibly push Yan Xiaoyi out? Yan Xiaoyi's words just now were already so obvious. But Xishanglan pretended not to hear it. Instead, when she spoke up for Yan Xiaoyi, she used the auction house incident to change the topic. It seemed like Xishanglan was still persistent towards Yan Xiaoyi. But behind this stubbornness, what kind of conspiracy was this? For this point, Yiqing Luo could only investigate in secret. Qing Luo, tomorrow. Can you count Xiaoyi in? Xishanglan saw Yiqing Luo intentionally acting dumb, so he could only bring it up himself. He suppressed his voice as though he was afraid that Yan Xiaoyi would get angry. Chapter 1771. Xishanglan's gentle face surfaced a thin shade of red. Xishanglan was already in his 20s, and according to his current status, every single woman around him had at least touched a woman in the past. Now that he revealed an innocent young man's expression, it totally didn't have that kind of pretentious feeling. On the contrary, it made one's heart palpitate wildly. This was indeed a kind of strange charisma. Yiqing Luo concealed the deep meaning in her eyes as she smiled sweetly. If Xiaoyi is willing to go, I will naturally bring her along. Her underlying meaning was also hinting at Yan Xiaoyi's rejection towards him. However, Xishanglan was prepared to play dumb till the end. His eyes shone as he replied joyfully, Xiaoyi will definitely be willing. Saying that, he cupped his fists towards the surrounding devil class students as he spoke gently. My invitation has already been sent, so I won't disturb you all any further. Young Master Shi, it's already noon, why not stay for lunch? We haven't seen each other for a long time. Young Master Shi, don't be in a hurry to leave. Young Master Shi, the few moves that you taught us previously haven't been taught the next few moves. After lunch, can you guide us again? Devil class's students saw that he was about to leave, and all of them went forward reluctantly. Their faces were filled with pleading and unwillingness as they tugged at Xishanglan's sleeves. Yiqing Luo's lips twitched as she watched. Once again she expressed her admiration towards that ghost doctor Xishanglan's charisma. Wasn't it just because they stayed in the Shi family's courtyard for a period of time? How did their relationship develop to that of brothers? Recalling the time when they left the Shi family's courtyard, devil class's students seemed to be a little distant towards her. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. Surely it couldn't be. Xishanglan had been brainwashing the devil class's students? Xishanglan was tugged by the students as he looked towards Yiqing Luo helplessly, as though he was asking for her opinion. Yiqing Luo maintained her sweet smile as her peripheral vision shot towards Yan Xiaoyi's direction. Before she could reply, devil class's students said, Goddess Xiaoyi, young master, she specially sent an invitation to boss Qing Luo because of you. You should at least thank young master Shi. One of them spoke up, and the other female students immediately chimed in. That's right, Goddess Xiaoyi. Young Master Shi's power isn't limited to the South Waves continent, but he still went to great lengths to obtain 4 invitations for you. How romantic and touching. There were also many female students who clasped their hands together in front of their chests, a look of yearning on their faces. Xiao just say something and ask young Master Shi to stay for lunch. Following that, the male students also joined in the lobbying. Dozens of students surrounded Shi Shanglan and Yan Xiao. The entire Tian residence became extremely lively. Yiqing Luo looked at the scene which had already gone out of control, and in the depths of her charming eyes, there were some hidden rays of darkness. She had underestimated Shi Shanglan's influence on the students of Devil class. When the students of the Devil class were in high spirits, if they were to go against their wishes, it would instead arouse the dissatisfaction of this group of students. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips as her gaze shot towards Qiao Jin, who was standing outside the crowd, quietly watching the chaotic scene in front of him. He leaned against a tree and crossed his arms. His expression was calm and indifferent, as though the scene in front of him had nothing to do with him at all. If it wasn't for the forbearance and grief in his eyes, Yiqing Luo would have thought that Qiao Jin really had no feelings towards Yan Xiao. He obviously knew that Yan Xiao didn't like Shi Shanglan. Chapter 1772. Yiqing Luo couldn't understand why Qiao Jin liked Yan Xiao so much. After waiting for some time, Qiao Jin didn't take any action. Those Devil class students who were surrounding Shi Shanglan and Yan Xiao started to lead the tempo with great enthusiasm. Seeing the flash of complacency in Shi Shanglan's eyes, Yiqing Luo didn't want to wait any longer. She only had one thought now. Other than her Zhou Xian, all the other men were unreliable. You all. She hadn't even shouted the word, enough, out. An even more explosive voice was heard. If you want to eat, go eat with him. Yan Xiaoyi's face was as cold as ice as she waved her arm. A burst of invisible profound qi was released from her body. The profound qi opened a path for the Devil class students. Yan Xiaoyi walked straight ahead. The Devil class students crowded around her too tightly. Yan Xiaoyi's push made the group of students fall onto the ground one after another. Xiaoyi, don't go. Shi Shanglan looked at Yan Xiaoyi's departing figure as he anxiously chased after her. But the students behind him fell onto the ground one by one, and he revealed a guilty look as he turned back to help those students up. Are you all right? Did you fall anywhere? Shi Shanglan's concerned voice was as gentle as the spring breeze. His expression was filled with concern. Don't blame Xiaoyi, she's in a bad mood today and I've been pestering her, it's all my fault. Young Master Shi, how could this be your fault? Young Master Shi, don't blame yourself. We all know Goddess Xiaoyi's character. He's just shy. The students rubbed the areas where they fell as they shook their heads, comforting Shi Shanglan. Suddenly, the female student who fell the hardest rubbed her bruised elbow. She looked at Shi Shanglan, who was acting like a humble young master, and kept apologizing. The dissatisfaction she felt for Shi Shanglan suddenly gushed out at this moment. Even if she's shy, she can't be like this. Young Master Shi likes her, but that doesn't mean she can trample on Young Master Shi's sincerity. A voice was heard. A few female students who were slightly dissatisfied looked at each other in dismay. I also feel the same way. Goddess Xiaoyi is just relying on Young Master Shi's liking for her. Young Master Shi had painstakingly helped Boss Qing Luo to obtain 4 invitations from the treasure-gathering chambers, so it's totally not a problem for Young Master Shi to stay for a meal. Exactly. It's just a meal, don't act all high and mighty. Shi Shanglan's expression was slightly panicked. He suppressed his anger and said, we are all classmates in the same class and also brothers in the same team. You guys shouldn't say that about Xiaoyi. The expression on his face gradually became serious again. No matter how Xiaoyi treats me, I will gladly endure it. I hope that you will not criticize Xiaoyi anymore. This was an action of protecting one's beloved. Once again, these female fans were attracted. There are also quite a number of male fans. The sweet smile on Yiqing Luo's face started to crack. At this point, she could not help but admire Shi Shanglan's methods. Every word and sentence was to protect Yan Xiaoyi. But every word and sentence was purposely to erode Yan Xiaoyi's position in the hearts of the Devil class students. The voices of Devil class's students gradually quietened down. Shi Shanglan then said apologetically, you can have your meal anytime, but I won't be staying today. After such a thing happened, Devil class's students couldn't keep him any longer. One by one they sent Shi Shanglan out of the sky lodgings. Chapter 1773. As Yan Xiaoyi left in a rage, Devil class's students quietly dispersed after sending Shi Shanglan off. Apparently no one had the mood to eat lunch. The moment the word heaven left, it fell into silence once again. Yiqing Luo's gaze lightly swept past those few people who were still in the courtyard. Her vision finally stopped on Xiaojin. She lightly curled her lips as her eyes revealed some ridicule. Are you satisfied? Throwing this sentence, Yiqing Luo had already turned around and walked towards the direction which Yan Shaoyi had left to. Under the big tree, the man with his arms crossed slowly stood up straight. His hands fell to the sides of his body. He hung his head dejectedly as his body emitted a thick sorrowful atmosphere. The words which Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing were about to say were stuck at the side of their mouths. The duo's vision fell onto Qiao Jin's two arms, on the sleeves which had already been burnt into ashes. Greenish-black bruises were deeply imprinted on his arms. The area which was burnt was the area where Qiao Jin's palms were when he crossed his arms earlier. The bruises were the traces of 5 fingers. It could be seen how much willpower he had expended before he could endure it, to stand on the same spot without moving. Long Yunzhan and Tong Ziqing exchanged glances, as they saw the helplessness in each other's eyes. They obviously loved each other so deeply. Why must they torment themselves, torment the other party? Yiqing Luo followed the direction which Yan Shaoyi left towards, as she stopped at the main courtyard's garden, beside a pond. Yan Shaoyi stood by the side of the pond as she stared blankly at the pond. Hearing footsteps coming from behind, she immediately turned back. On seeing Yiqing Luo, who was dressed in red, an unconcealable sense of disappointment flashed past her eyes. Yiqing Luo walked up and stood side by side with her. Not Jinzi, disappointed? The young lady whose thoughts were seen through, her expression turned cold as she immediately turned her face away. Why are you disappointed? No hope, no disappointment. You can lie to me, but can you lie to yourself? Yiqing Luo sighed softly. If you can lie to your own heart, then I believe you. Yan Shaoyi pursed her lips tightly as she didn't reply. Yiqing Luo raised her hand as she patted her shoulder heavily. Honestly, have you thought of changing a man to love? Yan Shaoyi's petite body stiffened. She glanced sideways at him. What about you? Can you give up on His Majesty? I'm different from you. Yiqing Luo shook her head. He's willing to say that he loves me, and he will let me know that he loves me. Yan Shaoyi was silent for a moment, and her gaze returned to the green pond. Are you here to feed me dog food or to comfort me? You're the one who came up with this topic, I'm just answering you casually. Yiqing Luo put on an innocent look. Yan Shaoyi rolled her eyes at her. Yiqing Luo followed her as she looked at the pond, which was filled with floating leaves. No matter how you and Jinzi develop in the future as a friend, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't use Xishanglan to anger Jinzi, and don't get too close to Xishanglan. You noticed it too? Yan Shaoyi raised her eyebrows and smiled bitterly. Am I very pitiful? The person I love doesn't love me, and the person who says he loves me is constantly using me. She raised her head and gazed at the clear blue sky. The corners of her eyes sparkled as it sparkled. Perhaps all my good luck in this lifetime has been used to get to know you, my sister. Yan Shaoyi took a deep breath as she tried her best to maintain the calmness in her voice. Yiqing Luo looked at Yan Shaoyi's side profile. Chapter 1774. As it turned out, Yan Shaoyi had long sensed it. However, this was also a matter of course, because Yan Shaoyi had loved. She understood the feeling of loving someone and the feeling of loving someone. Even if Xishanglan was acting, no matter how well he acted, Yan Shaoyi could feel it too. Because she could not feel Xishanglan's heart. He clearly didn't love her, but he kept saying that he loved her. How could someone as smart as Yan Shaoyi not notice Xishanglan's intentions? However, she couldn't say it out loud, because no one would believe it. I will take care of him. Yiqing Luo stretched out both her hands as she looped them around her shoulders. Perhaps tomorrow's auction will be able to find out his real motive. You weren't fooled by him? Yan Shaoyi looked at her curiously. Devil classes students are being toyed with by him. I thought you would also be cheated by him. Other than the two of you, I don't trust anyone else. Yiqing Luo smiled. The Imperial Palace had investigated him, he's clean. Looks like it's very tricky. Yan Shaoyi leaned her head on Yiqing Luo's shoulder. Tomorrow's auction house, I'll go as well. Should we bring Jinzi along? Yiqing Luo hugged her. Tomorrow will definitely be a dangerous day. If he goes, I will be assured of you. Yan Shaoyi was silent for a moment, then nodded heavily. All right. Xianxia's invitation to her was definitely not an ordinary auction. 4 invitations, her and Xian Yan Xiaoyi and Xiaojin. Xian would protect her. Xianxia. With Xiaojin around, Xian didn't need to be distracted. She was becoming more and more curious about Xianxia's identity. Qingluo, do you think, if we really let it go, isn't it good for him? For me, for our team? Suddenly, the girl's dazed voice was heard from her shoulder. Qingluo was stunned as she lowered her eyelids. Seeing the fear in Yan Xiaoyi's eyes, she tightened her arms and sighed. Once emotions are involved, people will become irrational. According to the current situation, if you can really let it go, I will naturally agree. She really couldn't understand Xiaojin. Since she loved a man who would not give a response, it was better to give up as soon as possible. The longer it dragged on, the sadder and more hurtful it would be. Yan Xiaoyi's eyelashes trembled. The bewilderment and fear in her eyes became clear in an instant. Suddenly, she pushed Qingluo's hand away and stood up. Not waiting for Qingluo to react, Yan Xiaoyi had already fished out a silver object from her bosom. Qingluo didn't see clearly what it was when Yan Xiaoyi threw the thing into the pond. Yan Xiaoyi's actions were swift and decisive. It was as if he was afraid that he would hesitate and regret it. With a flash of silver light, the item sank into the water. Yan Xiaoyi's body seemed to have been drained of all her strength in an instant as she half knelt on the ground. Tears trickled down from the corners of her eyes and fell to the ground. She lowered her head, her body trembling. The thing that Yan Xiaoyi had thrown away just now was probably a memento that Xiaojin had given her. Qingluo sighed softly as she slowly squatted down beside her, taking the crying girl into her arms. Yan Xiaoyi's emotions stabilized after an hour. Qingluo comforted her in a low voice as she hugged Yan Xiaoyi, and the both of them left together. Not long after they left, a slender figure walked out from the darkness. Walking slowly, he stood at the place where Yan Xiaoyi was half kneeling earlier. A look of pain appeared on his unattractive face. He raised his eyes and his deep gaze swept past the jade-green pond water. His well-built body was tightly tensed up. He was worried about Yan Xiaoyi as he chased after her. But he saw the scene of Yan Xiaoyi throwing a silver object into the pond water. The thing. Chapter 1775. Throwing that thing away was equivalent to throwing away their past. Which also meant that Yan Xiaoyi was really going to give up the awkward relationship between them. Xiaojin looked at the pond water for a long time. In his mind, the scene of Yan Xiaoyi throwing the thing into the pond water kept appearing. The usually resolute man at this instance trembled slightly as his eyes turned red. His heart had a dull tearing pain. He painfully shut his eyes, using all his energy to control his own emotions. But ultimately he couldn't win against his body's uncontrollable actions. A splash sound was heard. Xiaojin jumped into the water. He hid the pain in his pupils as he swept his gaze across everything in the pond water. Finally, following his memory, he swam towards the place where that silvery thing fell into. Submerging into the water like finding a needle in a haystack, he searched for the thing that Yan Xiaoyi had thrown into the pond water. The entire pond of duckweed was stained all over him. Yan Xiaoyi's giving up, wasn't it what he wanted? But why? His heart still ached, so much pain that he couldn't breathe, so much pain that he was about to suffocate. The next morning, Qingluo and the disguised Zhou Xian, as well as Xiaojin and Yan Xiaoyi, took the invitation card and headed towards treasure-gathering chambers. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will emerge victorious in every battle. Qingluo had long gotten all the information regarding treasure-gathering chambers from Tao Zi. Treasure-gathering chambers was South Continent's biggest auction house, and could be said to have monopolized the entire South Continent's rare treasures auctions. Other auction houses were totally unable to be compared to treasure-gathering chambers. Moreover, this treasure-gathering chambers, other than the 2 powerhouses supporting it on the surface, rumor had it that the powerhouse behind it was a mysterious large clan. This clan was mysterious. No one in Nirvana realm knew about it. Unfortunately, this mysterious clan couldn't be investigated and couldn't be offended. It was rumored that a large family from another continent wanted to create trouble at treasure-gathering chambers. Not to mention that they were chased out by treasure-gathering chambers guards. In less than half a month, that large family was exterminated. No one in the family survived. There were at least hundreds of similar examples. As time passed, treasure-gathering chambers mysterious and powerful started to spread in Nirvana realm. And in a short span of a few years, it had become South Continent and even Nirvana realm's auction houses. However, this Jubao Pavilion was indeed capable. The auction was held once every 3 months, and the 10 treasures that were brought out every time would set off a wave in every continent. There were also people from other continents who had traveled thousands of miles from other continents to attend the auction. After reading all the information, Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at the man beside her. Even though half of his handsome face was covered, his temperament was still outstanding. What kind of power is the mysterious family behind Jubao Pavilion? There's nothing about this mysterious family in Peach's information. Zhou Xian's gaze swept across the information in Yiqing Luo's hands. If the 3,000 peach blossoms can really investigate the powerhouse behind the treasure-gathering chamber, then this so-called mysterious clan isn't considered mysterious anymore. Yiqing Luo curled her lips. My Peach's detection ability is very strong, all right. Zhou Xian only smiled. The 4 of them arrived at the entrance of Jubao Pavilion. The auction ceremony was filled with people coming and going, and early in the morning, it was already a boiling cauldron of voices. Countless high-ranking officials and dignitaries were crowded at the entrance, waiting to enter the treasure-gathering pavilion. Outside the treasure-gathering pavilion, 2 rows of guards stood ramrods straight. A row of 10 people, each guard's profound grade was Earth Profound and above. No wonder it was treasure-gathering chamber, each and every one of the guards were all generous. Following that, 2 middle-aged men dressed in brocade robes walked out from treasure-gathering chamber. Their expressions were grave, extremely solemn. Chapter 1776. These 2 people were the manager and deputy manager of Treasure Gathering Pavilion who were in charge of checking the invitations. Their checks were extremely strict. Those high-ranking officials were used to being arrogant, and when faced with such strict checks from the 2 managers, they didn't show any signs of unhappiness as all of them were extremely cooperative. There were many people who entered Treasure Gathering Pavilion and all of them were queuing at the back waiting to enter. Yiqing Luo and the other 3 were not considered early, so they stood at the back of the queue in an orderly manner, waiting to be checked together with the various high-ranking officials. As they waited, there was another long queue at the back. The more people there were, the livelier it became outside Treasure Gathering Pavilion. There were quite a number of high-ranking officials who directly took the opportunity to build relationships with each other. There were also quite a number of families from other continents who started to flaunt their existence. The more people there were, the more mouths there were. Very quickly there were noises coming from the queue. Plop. A heavy object fell to the ground. A person was pushed out from the group and fell on his face in a sorry state. Amidst the noise, there were a few ladies' scornful ridicule. You trash, you actually dare to participate in the auction ceremony, do you know what place this is? The one who was pushed onto the ground was a neatly dressed young man with delicate looks. He climbed up from the ground and looked at the person who pushed him out timidly. I know this is the auction ceremony, I have an invitation, why can't I come? Invitation? Just based on you? The lady sneered in disdain. You must have stolen this invitation. You're just a trash with no background at all. Where did you get this invitation from? What's the use of saying so much? Bring his invitation over and we'll know if it's real or fake. Another lady chimed in. When the other ladies heard that, they all nodded their heads in agreement. 4 ladies dashed out from the queue and grabbed the young man's collar as they searched for the invitation on his body. These few ladies were around 15 to 16 years old while the young man looked like he was 16 to 17 years old. A dispute between the youngsters. The various powerhouses naturally wouldn't stir up trouble. They just treated it as waiting for time to watch a farce. The young man struggled frantically. What are you doing? Of course my invitation is real, let go of me. His struggles couldn't resist the 4 ladies. Not long after, a woman took out a golden-laid invitation card from his body. The woman looked at the invitation in surprise. This kid really has an invitation? Open it and see if it's his name. Another woman snatched it and opened it. A few heads leaned forward and saw the name on the invitation. Their expressions were a little strange. He's just a piece of trash. How could he have an invitation? This is an imitation, right? That's right, this must be a fake invitation that the little trash made to sneak into the auction. The 4 women looked at each other and smiled, seeing the disdain in each other's eyes. Suddenly, the woman holding the invitation raised the invitation high up and took a step back. Little trash, you actually dared to use a fake invitation to deceive the treasure-gathering pavilion. Tear up the invitation. Let's see how he's going to lie now. A few girls teased each other, huddled together, and began to tear apart the golden-laid invitation. Seeing this, the young man hurriedly rushed forward. It's true. This is a real invitation. You can't tear it, you can't tear it. But just as he rushed forward, the 4 women lifted their legs and sent him flying. The young man was so anxious that his forehead was full of sweat. He rushed forward and wanted to snatch it again. However, those women seemed to be playing with puppies.